to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Then we have the ever loquacious Walter Mitchell of Revenge of the Birds. Say hey to the folks, Walter.
Hey, Professor. Thank you so much for having me on with my good friends. This is like Hollywood Squares. Can't wait to get to the guy in the middle, so go right ahead.
All right. Then we have Jackie Samaniego from the Redbird Red Zone, Too Many R's podcast. How are you doing, Jackie?
I'm doing great. This is my first time talking on camera in a long time. So I'm ready to get into it.
Awesome. And then we saved the best for last. And if you're following this, see, his name is Kyler, but I feel like we should call him Buddha because he's got that dog in him. He's fresh off of a back surgery on meds I cannot pronounce. And certainly I am not qualified to prescribe, even though I have technically a doctor before my name. We are joined by Kyler Bird with the best profile picture I've ever seen. Kyler, we are honored to have you with us today.
You know, I'm the one that's honored, Joe. Truthfully. The hydrocodone just went down smooth. So this is going to be a great stream. I'm just not on camera because I'm literally on my side in my bed right now. But, you know, we're hitting the PT. We're getting ready. We're in training camp right now. And you know, this summer, going to be a new me. Cardinals are going to be a new team. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Well, real quick, I'm going to say hey to the folks in the chat, and then we're going to jump in the topics. We got Classy Nasty, who's always here with the first chat, it seems like. Thanks for being here. We got AZ Esports Cards, Full House. Dana Robinson. Hi, Kevin. Did you get a nap after? Yeah, right. Hopefully you got a nap today because it's going to be, Red Sea. Good Lord, everyone is here. That is right. We got Mikey Desert Card. What's up, Joe? And the All-Star crew. Thanks for being here. We got Drew McWhorter. It is a party in the house. Who's this guy? I don't know who that guy is. Aaron Van Buren. Eric Marshall.
You actually talking to Chad now.
Oh, yeah. Right. Then we got Eric Marsh, no TCR fantasy champions. He's so weird. He was the winner of the champion of our fantasy football league in the Discord. So yeah, Eric, sorry. Maybe next time we'll get you the invite. How many people can be on one live stream? Yes. That's the answer. Yes. Let's see. We got Brandon Bro. Seems being here. Awesome group. Excited to finally see what Monty and crew have cooked up. Agent 47 ready for debate. And then we got Sycan MHJF4. So let's jump right into it. The first topic is that we're going to talk about really is pick number 4, right? And we're going to start with, and we're going to go around the room and talk about real quick, what do you think the Cardinals should do? And we're going to start with Blake. What should they do at pick 4?
Yeah, the Arizona Cardinals are in a unique spot because this may be the last time that they get a top 5 pick as far as with Kyler Murray back healthy, as far as with the team continuing to add talent. I think with a lot of people, it always seems to go towards some sort of a move away towards something and then come back to where you started originally. I think there's been a lot of talk, at least, that the Cardinals, if someone gives them that grandfather offer, they could trade back. But it does feel in a lot of ways like that they will have an opportunity to for sure at least take Marvin Harrison Jr. with 3 quarterbacks going in the first 3 picks. I think that you could probably say that if you like another prospect better, feel like that you could be able to move a bit. I think that you also look at the other teams around. Chargers need a receiver. Giants need a receiver. This is one of those weird times where I think you try to say you look at tradition, and it's going to be almost 20 years to the day that in 2004, the Cardinals drafted another wide receiver with a top 5 pick. You wonder, is this a guy who's probably one of the closest prospects to Larry? I don't think anyone's saying that he is, obviously. All of these guys, no one's proven a thing in the NFL yet. You kind of have to weigh and figure out, what does a Godfather offer look like? Because otherwise, I'm probably saying that they should take Marvin Harrison Jr. because you're probably not going to get another chance to get the best player in the draft. And after they passed on one of those guys last year in the Will Anderson, still have a needed edge rusher. You don't want to kind of have opportunities to draft guys, trade back and get more picks, but then also create more needs. There's a give and take, I think, to being able to add more talent, more picks, and being able to recognize that hey, stars win games at the end of the day in the NFL. I think that would be the move I think that they should do, unless they end up getting this blow them away 4 first-round picks type of offer.
Great. Kevin, what do you think the Cardinals should do at pick 4?
Yeah, Blake made some really good points. I think the same. I think that the value of pick 4 has probably never been as high as it has been for quite a long time. I do think that at this point we need to look at this roster and you need to start adding blue chip talent. And if that opportunity presents yourself to pick the best player at his position for arguably the last few years at a position of need for the Cardinals, then for me, I think it should be a stick and pick at 4. But again, I think Monty's doing the right thing in driving that price up. See what comes across the table, what offers come through to see what could potentially tempt him to trade down. But I think really the only teams that would really armed with the ammunition to make us move off that spot would be the Vikings, in which case you're going to be moving out of the top 10. There's no guarantees that you can get back into the top 10 to get one of these top 3 receivers. And there's also arguably it is the best position for any rookie quarterback to go into in this draft. You know, they've got 2 great young tackles, an offensive-minded head coach, and those first-round picks you may pick up from the Vikings, you have no idea where they're going to be next year. You know, we saw it happen last year with the pick from the Texans. So, in my opinion, I think really at 4 we should be sticking and taking the talent that's there available at 4 to add to this roster.
Great. Marcos, what say you?
Oh, I wasn't prepared. I thought we were gonna go like this.
Yeah. I'm keeping you on your toes, man. You got to be ready.
You got me. So my thing is, when it comes to like my anxiety, I want to stick and pick at 4. That way we have like at least like the mindset that like, hey, we're just gonna do like the simplistic thing, the thing that we know for sure like has the highest chance of being able to like succeed. We all know that like no matter what you can say about the draft, every single pick is a crapshoot, and every single like position is a crapshoot as well. We never know what's going to happen. We could stick and pick at somebody that could be injured for the rest of their career, and then we could pass on somebody. Obviously, hindsight will always be 2020, but for me personally, if there's that situation where they do move back and they still end up with the Roma Dunes, I'll be happy. I just don't know if they're going to be able to be lucky enough to pull that off. We don't know if the team that we're trading with is going to pull the rug from under us, and we don't know if we could even trade back, just like Evan mentioned. We have no clue. So for me, when it comes to my anxiety, I'd rather stick and pick and get the guy that I feel is for Kyler's career and for his sake, for his ability to be able to target the outside. He's probably has the best ability to be able to get that guy the ball, and that guy is able to go up and get it against like many other corners and stuff in today's game. Yeah, like you want one of the 2 guys. So if you're gonna do that, you better end up with one of those 2 top 2 receivers. Or if you move back, you better make sure you get somebody that for the long haul is not only going to be that blue chip talent that we've been needing, but that person that's going to earn that second contract with the Cardinals.
Great. Kyler, what do you think?
So this isn't something that a lot of people know, but about once a month, all of the Kylers in the world, we have a Zoom call. So I did have a chance to talk to Kyler pretty recently. And he was saying, you know, get me a weapon. I need an X, man. I need an X. So in my opinion, I think, and this goes to the point you made at the very beginning, or maybe it was actually Blake that made this point. We hope that the Cardinals are never picking this high again. Preferably for the history of the franchise, it would be great if we never picked in the top 5 again, because that means we're starting to have some success. So this is your chance, hopefully your last one, to add a blue chip as close as you can get to guaranteed player that we've seen in multiple draft classes. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is that guy. There's not that much unknown about him. He's been incredibly productive. He's been solid and reliable and dependable. And you know the bloodline too. Like, you know where he comes from. There's not a lot of just hidden things that might pop up about Marvin Harrison Jr. And when you know a guy's that good, possibly the best wide receiver we've seen coming out of the draft in like 4, 5+ years, you get that guy because you hope he's going to be with your franchise quarterback for a long time. So in my opinion, that is the way that you do need to go. You need a stick and pick there because this is an opportunity that hopefully you don't have in the future. And you take the best player available. So many people are on board with saying he's the most talented player in this draft. He's just not a quarterback. so he's not going to go in the top 3. But I say you stick and pick, and you take that generational guy, and you use the rest of the draft capital that you've accumulated, which you have a lot. We have 11 picks. Like, we have a crazy amount of draft capital. Monty did his job last year, but let's take our one last chance, hopefully, to take that supremely talented guy in the top 5.
And Brian's saying that he's confirming that you're telling the truth about the Zoom call because his 3-year-old son Kyler was on there too.
I wouldn't lie. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Aaron Van Buren, what do you think the Cardinals should do?
I think that they should really make a statement and actually protect their franchise quarterback. Forget MHJ and go with Joe Alt. If we are so dead set on Kyler's the guy, hey, he's going to be here through 2028. Let's protect him, because eventually, he said, my legs are a luxury thing. We went through that. And if he's going to be, this kind of, 2 tight end, play action passer, then he's going to need some time to do it. Now, the O-line did make some strides a little bit last year, but of course, I'm heavily biased. I played the position in college, but there's so many other things that I think the Cardinals have missed on, and it's been building at the offensive line. Like, yes, there have been years where Kyler's come really close to 4,000 passing yards, but other than the 7-game stretch in 2021, when else has he, performed, like one of the best guys, truly one of the top 3 passers in the league? And I think if he had a little more better protection, and if Kyler is as good as everybody wants to say he is, then he can elevate any wide receiver that he gets. Look at the Aaron Rodgers effect. So that's what I would say, as opposed to what they will do. That's a different question, but that's where I would go.
Okay. Aaron, while I may not agree with you, I appreciate you bringing a different perspective, because sometimes we get a little groupthink going on here. And of course, Aaron's going to zig while we're zagging. So thank you, sir. Walter, what do you think?
What I'm hoping they will do, and I wrote about this on Revenge of the Birds today, is trade down with the Giants to 6 and get their 3rd round pick, number 70. And a 2nd round 225 pick, and Azeez Ojulari, edge, brother of BJ. I wanted to get edge off the table right away, because this is one of the worst edge classes I've ever seen. There's no slam dunk, not even Dallas Turner. I watched his tape. I'm not convinced he's a slam dunk edge, like 10 sack guy in the NFL. So, and I'm not a Marvin guy. I looked into him left, and right, and came up with all sorts of questions. I love Roma Dunze. Love everything he did in the process. I think he's a tremendous leader. Love the way he took Washington from 4-win team to the Natty in 2 years. I also love Brock Bowers. And if you trade it down further, I think as a system fit, he's the perfect fit for our 12 personnel, 13 personnel. Those guys are ballers, Dunze and Bowers, physical players who will run through you. So that's what I'm hoping they'll do, but I already know what they're going to do. And so that's the next question, right? So I'll wait for.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
Right.
Jackie, what do you think they should do?
Well, I think they should listen to the phones. They're going to be holding on to that pick until we're on the clock. See what the package is. But ultimately, I think they should stay put. I was kind of looking at the Bengals with their Super Bowl year. And you get Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Zach Taylor, he's not that great of a coach. Their offensive line was not good. And that it took them all the way to the Super Bowl. You've got to get that blue chip player. You've got to get that generational talent. The stars kind of align with, the first 3 teams needing quarterbacks. So, there's Marvin Harrison Jr. is being served to us on a platter, essentially. And I don't think you can just simply say, like, no, thank you. Like, you've got to take them. Even look at what we were when DeAndre Hopkins was healthy, and Marvin Harrison is the same kind of threat where he can make those 50-50 catches. So I'm all in. Let's do it.
Okay. Drew, were you keeping count how many panelists said stick and pick? Because I knew you had the over under at 4. So, of course, we got my answer coming in a second. Dana is saying, if we can get to 6, I think that's the way to go. I feel like Odunze, well, not Marvin Harrison Jr. is close enough that getting another second rounder in this draft is worth the difference. We've got Chris, thanks for being here. Star-studded panel. We got Jason. What is up, my friend? Thanks for being here. We got Kirk Harry agrees with the panel. Marvin Harris Jr. at 4, move 27 if you need to move. Lance is saying depends on what's offered. If it's a future first, take it. If not, stay, take the best player on the board. Right. And Sycan was agreeing with Aaron Van Buren there. Got a few other folks. Mark Jackson, thanks for being here. I am also getting excited about draft day. Alona, how are you? Good to see you. And then I know we got a couple other folks. I wanted to say hey to my buddy Kevin. Thanks for being here. Good to see you, Kevin. And we got Brett Jones. We're on the clock. All right, so I really like Rome Odunze as well. And if it's me, what I think they should do is they should sit and wait and see if they get a really, really good offer. But I'm not taking any offer that gets me out of the top 3 wide receivers. And I've said this before. For me, I feel like they need to come away with one of those top 3 receivers. I can live with any one of them. I prefer Marvin Harrison Jr. first. Rome Odunze is my second favorite because of fit and everything. So if you can get a trade back offer that is way ahead of market, right, in terms of what that trade should be, and still get one of those 3, then I can do that. But if not, you stick and pick. So that's my take. Austin, thanks for being here. So we've got a number of different perspectives, quite a few stick and picks, but a few that's like, hey, let's wait and see if there's a really great offer. And then one out of left field, right, for a left tackle. So now let's really quickly go around with this one. What do we think they will do? And we're going to switch it up. We're going to start with Walter, and then I'm going to keep you on your toes. You don't know where I'm going next, folks.
Yeah. Depends on who's making the pick. If it's Michael Bidwell, I know exactly what's going on. The whole we're going to trade out is a ruse to build tension. So it's this grand moment of we're on the clock. We hear the diddle-diddle-ling. The Cardinals are making the pick, and of course it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Michael Bidwell loves to give the fans what they want, particularly when he's under particular duress, as he is right now. In fact, he would fly Marvin Harrison into the Fan Fest if he could, and make a huge production out of it. If he's making the pick, that's what's going to happen. But the phones are going to be ringing, and Monty's going to be looking over there. He's going to say, like the Vikings are on the line now, and they'll even give us number 8 and number 10. I mean, number 11. If there's some bizarre offer. Because now I guess the Vikings are getting number 8 from the Falcons. I don't know if you heard that today, but for tampering, which increases their ability to move up. But yeah, if it's a Monty pick, we're trading down. If it's a Bidwell pick, we're sticking.
Okay. Kyler, what do you think they're going to do?
I think that Monty is going to do his job as the consummate businessman that I think he is. And he's not lying or posturing about the position that he's already made clear that nothing's going to happen until draft night. I think he obviously has plenty of ideas about what might happen and what the offers will be. But I think he will take everything seriously until the last second. But I think when all of the dust is settled, unless there is something that is like 3 firsts, something crazy, QB tax, however you feel about that, but like a swap of first this year and multiple firsts in the future that you cannot say no to just 100% objectively, then I think he will also do what we've been talking about here. And I think he'll take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, because he knows he has so much capital to work around with the rest of the draft. We can probably move back up into the teens if we want to with 27 and several of the other picks that we have. So we have a lot of leeway in the first just on our own. We have a lot of ammunition. By value, we own this draft. We can do what we want in the first. So I think at the end of everything, I'm going to say 80-20. We end up taking Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4.
Okay. Jackie, you're up next. What do you think they will do?
I think they will, like I said, listen to the phones, tell whoever is calling, this is our asking price. It's going to be something ridiculous, something that we absolutely cannot refuse, something that they probably won't want to match. Maybe something that, maybe we'll tell them, call the Chargers instead. We will hold firm. We'll get Marv at 4, and we'll all be here celebrating. It seemed like that last game of the year, Prater shanked those kicks. I think there was a reason for that, and I think Marvin Harrison Jr. was that reason.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Kevin, what do you think they're going to do?
The first thing I will say about it is I think Monty has played this brilliantly. It's nice to see that this organization now, nothing's really coming out. There's no leaks. There's no trickles of information coming out. They're running a very tight ship. So it is really a case of no one really knows what they're going to do. But in my opinion, I think they're going to do exactly that. They're going to listen to the phones. They're going to listen to the offers. I think if we do have the ammunition to move back up, but I think they're going to be looking to do that with that second first round pick to get back up into the 20s, if not sooner. Because I do feel like there's a drop-off, quite a significant drop-off after around 2022, around that mark in the first. So I think we're going to look to move up there. So I think Monty's going to do the right thing. I think he's going to sit it out. He's going to wait. He's going to listen to the offers that come across the table. And I think if the right opportunity presents itself that puts us into a better position for future drafts, one of the things I keep coming back to is Monty's opening presser, where he specifically said that they're not collecting talent, they're going to build the team. And obviously they're going to build through the draft. So it wouldn't surprise me if we do see some form of trade back, but I'd be very surprised to see if that is outside of the top 10. But I do think they're going to sit, they're going to wait, they're going to view up their options and see what happens. But I would not be surprised to see us do some sort of trade back into that top 10.
Aaron, what do you think the Cardinals are going to do?
They're going to trade back, because how do you know that the Patriots aren't going to try to punch us in the mouth at 3? Do you really think Drake May or whatever other quarterback is worth the 3rd overall pick, a pick that has basically been cursed over the last handful of drafts? And how do you know Gerard Mayo doesn't want to put Maserati Marv next to the dingy house? It'll be a real life meme. And so another thing you have to remember is that not only do the Cardinals have the most picks in the drafts, so does your division rival, the Rams. They actually have a first round pick this year, and the Packers also have 11. So why not continue to just build this ever-flowing surplus, move back 1 or 2 spots, get to 6 or somewhere within the top 10 at least. Don't go further than that. Get neighbors or get a Dunze and still win the draft. I mean, and the other thing that I think Monty really has a chance to do, call some teams bluffs. Like when Washington was sitting there, Ricky Williams in 99 and made Ditka give up all those picks. Or you can even look at it as a draft version of the Herschel Walker situation. Would you rather take one player or get all the other ones that helped Dallas build a dynasty? So that could happen in some sort of parallel or not parallel universe. I say trade down, get one of the top 3 wide receivers, still win the draft.
Okay, that's what you think to do. Blake, what do you think they're going to do?
All right. So what I think the Cardinals will do, and this is part of what I think they want to do. What they will do, at least, I think if they can pull it off, would be I think they would want to try to have their cake and eat it too. I think that you would look at and say, can the Cardinals trade back and then trade back up for their player of choice? Because it seems like a 3-team trade would make a lot of sense with a team like the Vikings going all in, trying to get a quarterback who, from what we've seen, is a good fit in J.J. McCarthy, someone who Jim Harbaugh at least has been propping up. And the Chargers, from what everything they've said has been, they've wanted to try to trade back, get more picks, be able to kind of bring what Monty Austin for it brought last year, which is more of their guys into a team that needs a lot of talent. I think that if you're the Cardinals, that's what you would want to do, would be, can we pick up like a first or a second next year and still get our guy in Marvin Harrison Jr.? What I think that they will do with the pick at the end of the day, I think that, and this is part of just my whole, I don't know if you want to call it a conspiracy or my guess, but I've always felt like that if you look at where a lot of the talk for JJ McCarthy comes from, it's from that number 5 pick, that pick that would have belonged to the Chargers at number 4 had not been for those Matt Prater missed field goals. You also look at the coach of JJ McCarthy and the best Michigan quarterback ever, and you're like, wait, didn't Tom Brady go to? Anyway, that is where I am feeling like what Jim Harbaugh is trying to do is he's trying to kind of push all this capital and get there to be 4 quarterbacks taken, because who then has the number 1 overall pick? It's Jim Harbaugh. It'd be the Chargers. And I think that if I was wanting to take a Marvin Harrison Jr. from the Chargers, the number 1 thing I would tell everyone is, hey, come on, trade up. We're going to trade up with this. We want an offensive lineman. We want an offensive lineman. And then they dealt away both Keenan Allen and didn't re-sign Mike Williams. They've got Josh Guyton as their number 1 receiver on the roster. Like, come on. I think that what's going to happen is, speaking of calling bluffs, I could see Monty calling that Chargers bluff, saying, you know what? I'm going to stay here. We're going to go ahead and take Marvin Harrison Jr., and we'll take a look at moving up with that second pick to get a second one of these guys that we covet to fill some of the major needs with some high-quality talent on this roster.
Marcos, what do you think?
Well, just like that's a great take what you just did, Blake Murphy. That's why he's my co-host, because we got some pretty really insightful takes. But yeah, I actually agree with what he was saying about like Jim Harbaugh. What he's trying to do is prop up his quarterback, and from what I've seen, like at least not just from film wise, but from like whatever videos I can get a hold of when it comes to JJ McCarthy, he's fool's gold, but he's still getting like, because of the fact that like teams are desperate and they want to get that franchise quarterback. The Vikings just lost theirs. They're trying to get somebody else to come into that building. Who's their best guy coming in after the top 3 get picked up? And that's going to be JJ McCarthy. So yeah, there's going to be a tax. The Cardinals are right there on number 4. So we're in good position to be able to trade back. Now, let me say some things about this. Last year, didn't agree with the trade back because of the fact that, like, hindsight, when it came down to it, Will Anderson did become that stalwart at edge rusher. And now he's not only, like, the Texans not only won the draft last year, they have 2 stalwarts on both offense and defense. And the thing is, we traded back, and then we traded back. So I was fine. Okay, you know what? Giving up Will Anderson. But then we gave up those top 2 second-round picks and moved back in with Paris Johnson Jr. Now, I understand we do need to fill up some needs when it comes to offensive linemen. I don't believe tackle was the biggest need, because I believe we had like 3 starting caliber tackles on our team. It's hard for tackles to develop with the new rules that we have, throwing them out into the fire. We need to have them like build snaps through, like, not only, through preseason, pick up the offense that way. If we're throwing them into the fire, there's some people that do flourish. Usually the 3rd or 2nd tackle taken in the draft is usually the best tackle of that draft. Sometimes you get them in the 3rd round, sometimes you get them in the 5th, but the best teams always build by getting that position flooded with like a bunch of like tackles, like just people that you have as a pipeline coming in, because you're not trying to throw them into the fire. You're trying to ease them up in there, trying to get them the most snaps, and then they start to develop better. And then you let go of that guy that you had as a starter that's aging and whatnot. So like Paris Johnson had 12 penalties and 8 sacks allowed last year. That was not great numbers for somebody you just like move back in to get as your guy. Now, can he improve? I would hope so. But now from here on out, let's see how that turns out, while Will Anderson's going to be probably on a Hall of Fame trajectory. So that's why I'm not a fan of it. I do believe they're going to move back. If they're going to move back, there's 2 players that they need to absolutely get if they don't get Marvin Harrison Jr. One of them has to be Roma Dunze. And if you're going to move back and still miss out on Roma Dunze, you need to get that typecast of wide receiver. And the only one that I can think about further than that is Adonai Mitchell, because Adonai Mitchell has the size. He has somewhat of a smooth route running ability, but he's still a 50-50 get up and get it type of wide receiver. And when it comes down to it, like, it actually is going to come down to Kyler Murray, what's going to happen. So whatever he wants to do, whatever Monty Ossenfort asks Kyler Murray, hey, what do you feel comfortable with? It's going to go with that situation. They will discuss it with him. And then after the draft is done, we'll see what they did as far as like consulting him.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm going to say it to a couple folks, and I'll give my 2 cents. We got some folks that have dropped in here. Blaine Clark, thanks for being here. Matthew Jewitz, appreciate you hanging out with us. Corey Cards, well, yeah, we'll have to get, maybe next year we'll get you in this. I hope you guys' podcast is going well. We got JP, appreciate you being here. We got Hank Hill. Okay. I think in the end, I did a mock draft that I posted, a video of that I posted. I'm going to stick with what I have there. I do think they're going to end up picking Marvin Harrison Jr., but let me kind of give a little more process behind it. I agree with more or less with a couple of people saying, including Blake here, in terms of they're going to wait and see, and they would like to trade back, maybe trade back up. But when you look at trades like that, there always has to be a partner in that. Leverage and the economic forces of the trading market, so to speak, are kind of part of that. And when you look at the teams that could trade up, I think that obviously the Vikings have the most draft capital, the most ammunition to trade up, and also the most impetus to trade up. They are the team that needs a quarterback, needs one now because they're built to win now, or at least they feel like they are. Whereas Denver, maybe they'd like to have one right now, but they're not just a quarterback away, I think. But the problem is, I think the Vikings front office knows that. And I think they know that no one else is going to, besides them, can offer the Cardinals, or is going to be willing to offer the Cardinals the kind of deal that the Cardinals are looking for. I don't know that other teams are going to mortgage their future first round picks for JJ McCarthy, even though people like him. I don't know that they're going to do that for that quarterback. So I think the Vikings are actually going to sit back and they're going to call Monty's bluff a little bit and say, we could trade up to 4, but we don't think we're not going to compete against ourselves. And we don't think there's anyone else who's going to offer you a good enough deal to move up to 4. So we're going to let you take the guy we know you want, who we know is not a quarterback, and we will instead trade up to 5. And the price is just going to be a little bit less going to 5 than it would be to 4. And I think in the end, I think the Chargers are more motivated to move back than we are probably. We have a ton of draft capital. So I think in the end, it's going to be sort of one of these kinds of situations where the value for the two teams looking to trade doesn't line up, and we end up sticking and picking, and the Chargers trade back, get the draft capital, and McCarthy goes 5. So
that's with what Adam Schefter said today. He said that it's going to be really hard for a team to get up to 4. Normally, if a team's so open for business, you'd be like, oh yeah, someone's moving up over there. With the top insiders, they all have seemingly kind of pushed toward this idea of, hey, would people like to get to 4? Yeah, it's going to be really costly. So I don't know if anyone can move the Cardinals off of that pick. That was what Adam Schefter said today. I kind of lean toward with you in that sense, Joe, of thinking that it may not be that much where the Cardinals find a trade partner that's willing to take their price.
Yeah.
I've also been thinking this for a while, that at 4, we're not that mysterious because we're not taking a quarterback, obviously. Like, we're not in competition with anyone that's motivated to move up that far is only motivated to move up that far. We are 100% not taking a quarterback, and everyone knows that. So it seems like the real mystery in any of those trade-up scenarios starts with LA. They don't need a quarterback either, but I think they're a little bit more likely to be playing ball in that realm. We're not that mysterious. We need linemen, we need defensive guys, and we need wide receivers, but we're not taking any of the quarterbacks. We're not competition for that for anyone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the only leverage we have is convincing the Vikings someone else is going to make an offer better than them. Right. And if we can't convince them of that, then they have no reason to dance with us. Right. So absolutely. The next question I want to get to is, in general, looking at days 1 and 2, right? First, second, and third round. What positions do we think the Cardinals should address early? We're going to start this time with Aaron Van Buren. I'm
going to stay consistent with what I've said before. In the top 3, not, or at least in my particular order, is O-line, cornerback, and then wide receiver. Now, what they probably will do is probably look at wide receiver, then corner. I'd be okay with that. As long as two of those three are addressed, then I think the draft is going to go fine. But still, for me, you really want to give Kyler a chance to flourish, especially under a head coach who's not worried about being the most glamorous thing on earth. Actually, there was a lot to like about the offense last year. So O-line, cornerback, wide receiver in that group. It's such a wide receiver heavy draft that, like I said earlier, if Kyler is as good as we think he is, he should be able to elevate those guys, especially in this new offense, and support around him.
Okay. Walter, what positions do you think we should take in the first 3 rounds?
Well, it's mystifying to me why everybody's talking offense when our defense was flat out awful, and they didn't do anything this offseason to address one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. Did not have a sack over the last 6 weeks. It was embarrassing, quite frankly. And we do not have the talent on the edge, and we don't have interior pass rushers. So that's why I wanted a trade to include an edge player, an established one who has the talent of like a Ojulari. But I mean, I hope they can make a trade. I mean, the edge players in this draft are, no one's a slam dunk. Joe, I love your guy, Gabriel Murphy. All the background you did on that, I think fits, but I don't think he's a step in and play starter. I think he's a guy who could develop like a Van Noy, like the great analogy you made there. But that's a later round. I mean, I'd wait till late 3rd round or early 4th round for a guy like that. So what I would do, what I'm hoping they'll do, is take some interior pass rushers, because there's a few of them, like Jerzon Newton, if they can get their hands on him, like Brandon Dorlus, who can play 3 and 5 technique from Oregon. Or Darius Robinson, some guys who can rush from the inside, so we can get an inside rush. We did get Mac Wilson, who's a blitzing linebacker who had, I think, 4 or 5 sacks for the Patriots in spot Dewey. But I still don't understand why they have Zaven Collins on the edge. Doesn't seem like a natural pass rusher. And then you got, I think hopefully BJ Ojulari stepping up in year 2 and Dennis Gardeck picking up where he left off. But it's still not enough. We got to get a pass rush. And then cornerbacks. We need 2 slot corners. I'm hoping they'll take Mike Sainristil from the Wolverines, Michigan, who's a captain type, can play the slot. In fact, I think he's the best slot in the draft this year. He and Terrion Arnold and Cooper DeJean. One of those 3 players would be fantastic. And then take one of the big corners later, like Cam Hart, or I love Kyrie Jackson from Oregon. I love who's the other guy I love who's really big and good. There's a guy named Elijah Jones from Boston College. I really love if they could get their hands on him. But there are big corners later. The slot corners can go early. So I'm hoping it's defense. And last thing I just want to say is I want him to make one short trade down and then stick and pick. The trading back up last year did not work. We gave away too much. Plus, don't give away those premium first like day 2 pick. We have the 3rd pick in day 2. Don't give that pick away. It's too valuable. Sam Laporta was taken there last year. I mean, and he in a redraft, he'd be top 16. You're going to get this day 2 in this draft is a draft bonanza. I mean, the talent there is so deep. So stick with all those picks. Don't trade them back up into the 1st round. Just go and take the best player, BPA, best defensive players mostly, and see if we can rebuild this defense.
Okay, Jackie, which positions do you think we should take in the first 3 rounds?
Well, it's obvious wide receiver is going to be our first pick, whoever it is. And then you got to go either edge or corner. You can kind of interchange the two. Me personally, I would probably address edge first because this is not a good edge class. It's really not a good defensive class all around, but I do feel like there's more depth at corner than there is edge as far as this draft goes. We didn't sign any in free agency. We did add Sean Murphy Bunting to our cornerback room.
And our softball team, right? Right.
Yes. And then, we've got Keitrell Clark, we've got Garrett Wilson. They're both still developing. I think maybe you can move up a little bit with that 27th pick, maybe trade some of your day 3 pick or third round picks. You can probably move up a little bit, get yourself an edge. We've met with Jared Verse, we've met with Dallas Turner. We've met with who I think is an interesting prospect is Chop Robinson, but he still might be there at 27, so we'll see. But I think those 3 are the ones you need to address ASAP, and then everything else at that point is kind of a crapshoot.
Okay. Kyler, what positions do you think in the first 2 days of the draft?
Actually, pretty similar to Jackie on this. I've already said my opinion about MHJ at 4, so wide receiver. But even if in a trade down scenario, you need to stick somewhere in that top 10 so you can get one of the top 3 wide receivers. So regardless, wide receiver, number 1. And then I think with any trade up from 27 using some of the other picks to move into the teens, I think you got to use that on an edge for a lot of the reasons that Jackie stated. Outside of Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, and then if the medical's clear, Laiatu Latu, the edge class is just not good. I mean, those are the 3 guys that I think actually can be like NFL Pro Bowl caliber guys, and then the rest of the edge class just falls off a cliff. So if you can move up to get one of those guys, I think that's awesome. And I think that's the right move too, because there is more depth at corner. And then my 3rd pick would be corner. I mean, after wide receiver, there's a part of me that would be okay if the rest of the draft is defense. And minus getting an interior offensive line guy somewhere along the line, 4th round or something, I would honestly be okay if every other single pick was on defense, because that side of the ball was just, it was bad last year. There aren't words beyond that. There's hope and some hope for the future with the offense, and I think if you inject someone like a Doomsday or Marvin Harrison Jr. into that, then that offense could have a really good chance at humming next year if Kyler Murray's healthy, like a very good chance. But that defense needs help, and I think we need outside corners. We got Garrett Williams, who's shown a lot of promise in the slot, and I don't want to move him from that position. I mean, he showed that he can play the slot. Keep him there. Let him evolve into that. But I would like kind of a bigger framed outside guy, because you got Sean Murphy Bunting, who I think is a fine CB2. But if you're going to try to go into a season relying on him to be your CB1, then expect some secondary issues again. So that would be my order: wide receiver, edge, cornerback.
Blake, what do you say?
So one thing that I think I agree with in Aaron is that, and this is always the question, people have probably seen the meme by now where a couple years ago, same type of spot, do the Bengals take Jamar Chase? Do they take Penei Sewell? And so it showed Jamar Chase is getting wide open, but Joe Burrow is getting slammed and sacked, and then the ball is just sailing over his head. Then you see the Penei Sewell protecting Joe Burrow, but no one gets open to be able to catch the pass. And so they say, which one is it? Is it receivers, or is it offensive line? Is it quarterback? I think the answer is actually yes. So your goal, I think, is to be able to get all of those pieces working together. And that's tough to do in the National Football League. We just finally got a veteran offensive tackle with a young offensive tackle, and DJ Humphries tears his ACL and he's going to be out. There's a lot of starters that the Cardinals need this year. I think the reason why I swung a bit to wide receiver over offensive tackle myself is because I realized, and this is with Seth Cox or Sightly, he said, when you look at Kyler's stats, He, with Hopkins and without Hopkins, he has about 20 more touchdowns with Hopkins than he does without him. And I think that makes sense. We remember the red zone struggles Kyler had as a rookie in 2019. I think that having a big target for him and also making sure teams can't double your current big target in Trey McBride, I think that will be helpful for being able to get points in the red zone and get down the field. But I've kind of swung the other way some on. I think that the top 3 edge rushers are all pretty good starters. You're kind of boom or bust with Chop Robinson. You could argue that maybe that edge is our biggest need. Excuse me, my dog, at least for the most part, really wants an edge rusher. So he's just barking at me right now. He's got that dog in him too. So
Yeah, he does.
yeah. So, but when you're talking about this, like you said, being a poor edge rusher class and a poor defensive class overall, with I think maybe one exception that I would say, I kind of have leaned toward maybe you should just go out and get that guy who's an offensive lineman, be able to plug them in on the line, or even if you sit a guy for a year to play for next year, having 2 tackles locked up long-term in a great tackle draft. That's where I could see them addressing some of those spots. But I, at the end of the day, do think that, like you said, defense is going to be the need. Teams will draft for that. We'll see where they're picking, because I definitely think they'll take a corner, because you need a cornerback 1. You need probably a starting left guard unless they like John Gaines. You're going to definitely need to have a cornerback 1 who can man up on the outside. It just depends on if that guy is going to be there at pick 27. What I think that the Cardinals would target would be they'll get their wide receiver. Maybe they trade up for an edge or a cornerback if they like one of those guys. But Walter did mention a name that I would not be surprised if the Cardinals stay put with. Jerzan, or Johnny, as he wants to be called, Newton.
Yeah.
I've watched him, and he looks like he's a bit undersized, but he might be like my favorite defensive player in this entire draft. And he's not a lock to go round 1 at this point, which kind of surprises me and a lot of other people. Cardinals met with him. He really enjoyed them. He's one of those Jonathan Gannon type guys who's just disruptive. And I think right now you say, hey, if you can't get that edge rusher, but you can get a top defensive lineman that's able to be disruptive, that's going to need extra help in the middle of your defensive line, your offensive line for your opponent. You'll then be able to see some guys get those one-on-one matchups. I think at least if I had to go for the top 3, I would say it could be wide receiver, cornerback, and I could see defensive tackle. Good news also is they just have a lot of different needs. I think you probably look at a guard somewhere on day 2 or 3. It's a deep interior offensive lineman class. We'll see if it's a guard or a center. And I also have kind of a surprise pick as well. I don't think the Cardinals will draft a safety high this year. If you look at Budda Baker's contract, it goes through this year, and there's an option for 2025. I think the Cardinals are going to keep him through that contract unless they decide to extend him. We'll see what goes on. Some people have wondered, could they take a safety early to prepare? I think they wait another year for that. And I think that they'll also wait another year on getting an early running back. I think they'll trust Budda and James Conner to go through. And I think it'd be an inside linebacker would be the maybe surprise earlier pick somewhere in that first 90.
Trotter?
Yeah, that might be the one. But those would be the kind of top 4 needs I think they'll address with the first 4 picks. And the surprise would be like, oh, they're taking an inside linebacker early. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, we saw last year what their team looked like without Kaiser White.
Kevin, what do you think that's in the first 3 rounds? What do you think? What pick positions do you think they should address?
So I'm just getting flashbacks to drafting inside linebackers early. Sorry, it's yeah. So I think the consensus is pretty straight here. I think we need to get the starting outside receiver. I think that's extremely important, but I think some form of pass rush. Now, I don't think that's edge or defensive tackle. I just think either or, we need to get to the quarterback. Like Walter said, our pressures were absolutely atrocious at the last 6 games, not 1 sack. I think that's embarrassing for a defense, especially for how JG likes to play. So edge is a bit of a strange one for me. I think that there's the top 3 guys, and arguably the third is hit or miss. And is he going to fall out the first? I'm not so sold on Chop. I think he's a very boom or bust type player. I think I mentioned this last time when I was on here, is the fact that I feel like he relies on his athleticism too much. I think Jared Verse, again, he is a bit of a strength player. And I think Latu's probably out of those 3, the one that's probably going to be the biggest hit just due to his array of pass moves. But I love Johnny Newton. I think he's fantastic. I did see today, though, that the reasons and the rumors that he might potentially fall out of the first is due to his foot injury that he was playing with last year. He has a fourth metatarsal fracture, which is apparently a very easy fracture to re-injure. So a lot of people might have even just removed him from their boards because you know that he's going to potentially miss time in the future, which is a shame because I do think that he's a perfect player for us, and I just love, like I mentioned earlier, I think he's a cannonball. I think he's he gets there, and I think he's a perfect type of player. But outside of those two, I also think I'm going to sort of slightly disagree with Blake. I think defensive back in general is a need for us. I think that outside starting CB1. Absolutely, but I do think that we do need to address safety. I think obviously Buda came off probably one of his worst years in probably a few seasons with us this season, and obviously he's that great person to have in the locker room and have that bring that mentality. But I do think that strong safety spot in particular is something that we're going to have to potentially look at. And it's also worth questioning as a case of, it's the age-old question is has Buda got any trade value, and do they see that in Buda, and if they find a guy this year? We know that they've been looking at safeties as well. There's been some in some 30 visits as well. But yeah, I think those are the biggest needs. I think it's receiver, some form of pass rush, whatever that will be, if it's in interior or edge rusher, and then defensive back as well. So more arguably corner, a CB1 rather than safety, but I do think both something that needs to be looked at.
Okay, Marcos, what positions do you think they should address early?
They need to stop ignoring two parts of our team, both on offense and defense, and it has to do with the lines, but it has to do particularly where on the lines. I think they get too hyper focused, and a lot of people get hyper focused on the outside. When you have a quarterback that has a hard time having vision, and you're installing him in a system where now he's turning his back to the defense, turning around to see what he can target. One of the things he hasn't been able to do that we have to start in like actually instituting in this offense is the under center 3-step drop type of offense. You can't do that if he can't see over his lineman. Closer to his lineman, his vision starts getting obscured. That inside protection needs to be key because of the fact that they need to be able to hold off all these interior defensive linemen further back and then have better control over them so they can open up those passing lanes better, so he can target over the middle more consistently, because it's not a situation where you need him to be pinpoint over the middle, but you need to have him be able to target over the middle more often and more consistently. That's the reason why we can't get those 7-yard, like little shallow route, these little dig routes over the middle and stuff as consistent. He has been able to throw them, and I've seen him be able to do it when yet everything, all the stars align. So on both sides, the interior of the offensive lineman and the interior of the defensive lineman. And for one thing is like, I hate that they just cannot place people in the right positions. They have people outside of their position of strength. You want your players to play at their best positions, at the positions that they're really good at. And they just seem to like play like 4D chess or think that they're the smartest people in the room by putting them in other positions they don't belong. I put like a couple of like clips about Cam Thomas being the outside edge rusher. He was not an edge rusher in college. He developed all his skills from his interior. He did it with the hand on the ground, getting from under the offensive lineman, taking on guards, and that's how he developed most of his pressure and most of his moves. There's different ways to be able to pass rush when you have to do it on the outside. You have different looks and different tells, yet they're placing him on the outside. His career's taking a dip. He's not getting as many like snaps as it is. And now we're looking towards like, hey, is this guy even going to develop as a good player? He's probably on the chopping block. I wouldn't be surprised if after the draft he's gone. But if you still keep him after the draft, start putting him like at 5 technique. Start putting him on the inside shoulder of the tackle, outside shoulder of the guard. Put him so he can somewhat move around in that area, because that's where he developed most of his skill. And on the offense line, same thing. Let's stop having these guys come in who are like 1 or 2 year veterans and whatnot. Like we had our chance to get that guy at center and we passed him up. Obviously we did because we're the Cardinals. But now that center position is very important in today's game, especially if you can get one that can last the rest of the career, have that communication with Kyler Murray, call out protection schemes, because of the fact that like if he needs to know and needs to read the defense and he needs to like communicate that with his quarterback, that right there means you have that chemistry to be able to run the offense more fluidly. Not, hey, we got this guy for 1 year and he's going to learn to pick up the offense and then let's just say he's injury prone because he's in his later years. Now we don't have a person to be able to take up his position. So those are the two positions that we criminally have been ignoring and just filling up with veterans, thinking to ourselves, hey, we got this guy, like he showed above average like snaps, but he's not the starter at this position. And then we just consistently just keep like just ignoring it. And it's taking its toll on our offense and defense.
So interior offensive line, what I have to say that is the almighty chart says interior offensive line does not go. Folks from the Discord and mock draft buddies will appreciate that. They need to address that. I wouldn't, but the early, I don't think Monty's going to do that early, but yeah. So I'll chime in here. I think wide receiver is a must. You absolutely need wide receiver. And I want one of the top 3 guys. I think cornerback is a position you have to take in day 1 or 2. I can live with a second or third round. We have praise the chart. Praise be the chart. You have to get a cornerback somewhere in the first 2 days. And then I agree with what a few of you have said. And I think Kevin said it most eloquently, or maybe it felt that way because he's British. But I feel like you need either interior or outside pass rush. If you don't get one of the edges that you like, as people have noted, it's not the best edge class. And if you don't get one of those top 3 guys you like, maybe by trading up from 27 and you sit, then I can be very happy with getting Johnny Newton, right? And get the interior pass rush and develop the guys and get a guy a little bit later to develop on the outside. So I think you need to have cornerback, though. I think you need wide receiver and you need some type of pass rush, interior or outside, I can live with. And then I will say the other position that I think you need to kind of consider that has been mentioned is, I think earlier, is offensive tackle, but not early in the first round, because some people have talked about this is a really great offensive tackle class. And I think at 27 or maybe even 35, you might be able to get a really nice offensive tackle potentially, who might be a guy you develop. You may not be starting him right away with having Jonah Williams on the roster. You probably aren't, but maybe you get an offensive tackle because the class is so good and you can get a guy a little bit later, in the first round or in the second round that you would normally have to get, earlier than that. So that's kind of where I would go with that. All right, I think we've gotten quite a bit because we got some really insightful folks who have a lot to say, who like me like to talk. We're going to go with one more question, and I'd like us all to kind of try to be a little bit brief on this so that we can get out of here within reasonable time. But list just a couple players that you like on day 2 or 3. So getting outside the first round, just a couple players that you'd like to see the Cardinals consider. Let's go ahead and we'll start how we did before. We'll start with Blake and work our way around.
Yeah, I think as far as it goes with some of those other rounds, I think 2 of the players that I'll pick here, both are from Ohio State University that could fit. One would be Michael Hall, the defensive tackle. He's a guy that I think is an NFL starter. He's just not being projected as high as the first round. And the other is Cade Stover. Cardinals are going to be in 12 personnel as their main personnel, which means right now it's going to be a heavy dose of Trey McBride and Elijah Higgins, with how Jeff Swaim was solid last year in that tight end 2 role. They really haven't gone out and gotten in a different type of veteran. They may still sign one of those guys after the draft, but Stover is one of those players who's never probably going to be a tight end 1, but is going to be solid, where if Trey McBride was to miss some time, or as we saw, he got beat up over the year as he was effectively their wide receiver 1, you wouldn't see that much of a drop off. I think that those are guys that check a lot of the boxes for the Cardinals as far as guys they liked from those schools. Obviously, Marvin being the main one. They drafted Paris Johnson last year. And as far as any other type of interior lineman who runs underneath, I think it's like a 4.8 shuttle a time. I know that, Joe, you and I've talked about this before. The person who popularized that was
4.37 or something like that.
I think it was Josh Norris was one of the people who popularized that. And he said, hey, the Cardinals took that last year with John Gaines II, who maybe he gets a shot at the left guard spot coming off of that injury. What's funny was tracing back some of Josh. He went over his history. He was actually learned that from at the time, I believe it was St. Louis, now Los Angeles Rams, when he worked for them, when he worked for the team. There was another person who also worked for the team, who was a combine scout at that time. You might be familiar with him. His name was Jonathan Gannon. He was also with the Rams during that exact same time. So they both learned the same cheat code because they were with the same organization at the same time during the same draft. Any player, I think, who falls into that category is someone I could see the Cardinals taking on day 2 or 3 on the interior O-line.
Awesome. Kevin, who are a couple players you like?
Yeah, sure. I'll go one each. I'll go one offense and one defense. I'll start with the offense. Player I quite like as probably the developmental tackle option is Javon Foster out of Missouri. Great length, size. He's still quite raw in terms of his footwork. Often overextends himself, but I feel like he had a really great showing at the Senior Bowl, and I feel like he's one of these, probably day 3, potentially more likely tackles who you could really sort of draft and develop. So I really like Javon Foster. I feel like he's quite underrated, and I feel like he's flying under the radar a bit. And in terms of defense, I'll go with Malik Mustafa, the safety out of Wake Forest. He's a heat-seeking missile. He's 5'11", 207. He's arguably the best, hardest hitting safety in this draft, and he just really reminds me of a certain somebody who is on the Cardinals right now. And I think he's again a really solid player who is again probably getting slightly underlooked in terms of the positional value, perhaps. But again, yeah, Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest. I really like his tape as well.
Awesome, Marcos. Who are a couple of players you like?
Cooper DeJean and Malachi Corney, whatever his how do you pronounce his name? The wide receiver that like is a yak machine. I believe that both of those positions will be addressing some needs on the offensive line when it comes to like some positions that were moved off of, like Rondale Moore, for example. He was the move like wide receiver. He was the Z. He was the motion guy. So we need to kind of replace that. Because in today's offense, you also need somebody that can be able to get the ball quick and get those little chunk yardage for you to keep so you can keep the offense moving. There you go. Sorry, I had a little bit of brain fart, but anyhow, you still need that in today's kick return rules. I think he would flourish. So, and then Cooper DeJean, I would love to be able to draft him and kind of have him sit behind that safety, safety room with both Buddha and of course like Jalen Thompson. Because I hate to admit it, but I think Buddha, like not his talent, so like as much or anything else. I think he just kind of like is souring on the Cardinals, and it's not. I don't believe that's a lot of it is his fault. I believe that the Cardinals are kind of like stiffing him in a way. They're giving him like the cold shoulder. We all kind of seen what he did with his social media. Like he took the Cardinals like his uniform, his jersey off, and then now he has just a regular one, which usually that means, hey, I'm not happy with my organization. So with that being said, there's a good chance that he might not be a Cardinal within the next 3 years or whatnot. We don't know what's going to go on with his career. So we need somebody who's going to be a developmental guy behind him. Not only is Cooper DeJean a good like safety option, but he's also good as a slot option. And today's NFL, you really need a strong apex.
Jackie, who are some players you like on day 2 or 3?
Well, since this draft class is pretty deep as far as wide receiver goes, I like Jalen McMillan out of Washington. He's 6'1", 197 pounds, but he is pretty fast. We lost Rondale Moore. We lost Hollywood Brown. I think he's a guy that could probably take the top off the defense, especially if Marv's getting double teamed. And I also like that he's got good hands, good body control, good acceleration. And then I also like a corner out of Auburn, Nehemiah Pritchett. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Nehemiah Pritchett.
Yep. But he's got a lanky build. He ran a 4.36 in the combine, so he's fast. So he'll be able to keep up with these wide receivers. The only knock on him is that he does play physical, but he does get a little handsy. But he's good at tracking the ball. He can get his head around. So those are two guys that I like.
Okay. We keep losing and getting Aaron Van Buren back. So let's get Aaron Van Buren, see if he can give us his before his internet craps out again. Who are a couple players you like in day 2 or 3?
Yeah, it was internet was doing good for a while there. But technology is always fun. The guys I like on day 2 and 3, obviously I have to give a little bit of a shout out to someone who I trained very briefly as an intern in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. His name's Braylon Allen. He's a running back. Absolute great guy. Just incredibly strong kid. I mean, I remember back when, I don't know how old he was when I trained him, but I'm definitely a little biased to that. I actually think Walter had brought up his name, Jeremiah Trotter, or somebody has said that. I really like him. I think he's a great fit. Yes. Marcos, thank you. So I think he's a great fit in Gannon and Rallis's. I can never get the
Rallis
coordinators right anymore. Okay, it is Rallis. I think it's a great fit for the defense. And then something just real late, because you're only as good as your backup quarterback. And I don't believe in Desmond Ridder at all. I kind of like taking just a late day 3 flyer on Spencer Rattler.
Okay. Walter, who are some players you like on day 2 and 3?
Well, this is a Noah's Ark draft for me. I say we go 2 wide receivers, we go 2 pass rushers, and we go 2 cornerbacks.
I get it.
That's why I want to stick and pick, because we need so much depth on this team. They gutted the roster. All these picks. You can just say, oh, we'll toss in the number 90 pick. The number 90 pick's going to be a great pick for somebody in this draft. It's going to be an absolute great pick. But here's my fantasy. In day 2, Jalen Polk. I'm on Jackie's side with these Washington wide receivers. I think Jalen Polk could be the Puka Nacua of this draft. I think he's gonna be about as productive as any wide receiver we're going to see in this draft. He's a special player. If you look into him, and he's got some size too. I think he's 6'1", 6'2", and he's just a catching magnet. So I love him. I love Ben Sinnott, the tight end from Kansas State, who could give us an H-back, which we currently don't have. That was the argument I've been making about Brock Bowers. Boy, what he could do in our offense would be amazing. But Sinnott, to me, is the closest thing to Bowers, so I would want him. On the defensive side, I like what Kevin said about safety, but only in the different end. We do not have a deep center field safety. We're getting killed deep every game, because Buddha and Jalen are not deep safeties. They're both strong safeties.
Thank you.
They're not free safeties. So keep an eye on. I know the Cardinals have been very interested in this kid from Texas Tech, Dadrion Taylor Demerson, probably in the 4th round at pick 104, to play the back end in with deep help in cover 1 and cover 3. That would be a huge plus for us. We really need to take care of that back end. How many times did we give up bombs? First play of the second half against the Giants, up 20-0. They throw a 55-yard bomb completion. I mean, I could go down the list. And one other defensive player I really like, who's a sleeper, is Brennan Jackson, edge player from Washington State. If you look at the tape on him, he's got length. I think he could do, Joe, what Gabriel Murphy can do in that Van Noy role, but he's a little bigger and stronger, sort of like a Mike Vrabel.
Yeah. Blake Murphy had to dip out real quick. I know it got a little bit late for him, but Kyler Bird, before we get to your 3, there's a question from the audience. Let's get to the hard questions. Like, is Kyler Bird regretting his like challenge right now for the profile picture?
That's a good question, Luke. And let me just say, I put the challenge at a low number because I wanted to change it to this anyway. And I just needed an excuse to do it. So 50 likes, I think I could have gotten 200, if I asked for it. I really do. But I'm happy to do that. So is it my turn to give you my
You ever
view?
keep that? Have you all seen? There's a meme. It's like it's a Twitter thing or whatever by Godzilla. Says one like and it'll destroy Tokyo for no reason, and you see it's liked by Godzilla. He's like, right? Yeah. It's that's what it's like, Kyler. So yeah, who are some of your players you like on day 2 or 3?
So I've got three. I've got one interior offensive line guy and two cornerbacks for you. And my interior offensive line guy, it actually might take some working around with our various draft picks to actually get him, because he is, I think, the best guard in the draft right now. Christian Haynes out of Connecticut. He's just look at his Senior Bowl tape, and the dude's a brick wall. Like, nothing gets past this guy. He has all of the durability that this staff really seems to want so much. That was the pattern we saw in all of their free agency picks, really, was how often they can play. And Christian Haynes has played more than 800 snaps in all 3 seasons that he's played. Dude just is a wall. And I think he's equally good in the run and the pass. He's let up like 3 sacks in 3 seasons of college and like 4 hits. Not much is getting past this guy. The only thing that I would say fit-wise against him is he's played his entire career at right guard. But, hey, if he's that much of an improvement at right guard, then we try Will at left. I don't really care. Like, Christian Haynes is just that good of a guy. So if there was a way to get him on day 2, I'd absolutely love to do that, because I think that is an immediate, huge upgrade on the interior. So I like Christian Haynes a lot. My second guy is a cornerback that I think late 3rd round potential. We got those 3 third-round picks, but it's Renardo Green out of Florida State.
I love this kid.
I think that guy's a dog too, and he's good size. He's 6 foot, 186. A little bit older. He's 23, but when you watch him play, there just isn't like any jumping the gun with him. He's calm. He knows what he's about. He already plays like a pro in that regard, and he's got good enough size to do it on the outside. He's played pretty much his entire college career out on the outside, and the highest passer rating he's ever allowed in 3 college seasons is 86.1, and in 2021 he allowed a 46.5. So dude has scored well, graded well. He had 3 defensive touchdowns last year too. Like, he can get the ball. Dude can be a ball hawk when you put him in the right situation, and he can play man coverage and press equally well. I think he had like a 90 PFF man coverage grade. Dude's elite when it comes to that, and he was 6th in the country in forced incompletions. So I think he's being severely underlooked just because it's a pretty good cornerback class. And the other cornerback that I had is not necessarily one that I want us to take. It just feels like a very Cardinals thing to do. Maybe sometime in the 5th round, Kalen King. Dude coming out of last year was supposed to be like a top 10 pick. He had an insane 2022, like the best graded college cornerback ever in 2022, and had a massive fall off. I've never really seen anything like it. But he has all of the athletic gifts that you could ever want in a cornerback. He's a little smaller, 5'11" or something, I think. But in that 2022 season, passer rating of 48.9, 3 interceptions, and he's allowed, well, I mean, he's only allowed a little bit more than 50 receptions in his college career. So there are things there are tools and gifts there that he has that, for whatever reason, he had a bad 2023. But if it's a late round thing and you're taking a flyer on a guy who's shown it in the past, and you have a guy like JG who prides himself so much on being that defensive back guru, I could definitely see that being one of those, like, I can fix him type of scenarios. And I could see Jonathan Gannon looking at him and saying, well, yeah, I can fix this guy. So I wouldn't be that surprised by it, and I wouldn't be that mad at it either, because JG did take really bad defensive backs, and made them do some things last year. The defense, as bad as it was, on paper should have played even worse. So they got coached a little bit above what they really were. And I think that trend might continue there. So those are my guys.
Nice. I'm going to give 3. We got everyone else, right? We got to everyone, right? Want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. It's a big panel, right? So I'm going to start with a player I haven't really talked about, but a running back, Trey Benson, really physical, really fast. He's 6'1", 223, which is shades of James Conner in terms of size, at least. Needs to work on some things in terms of his vision and such. But that's an interesting guy. Probably they'd have to probably go on day 2 to get him. But that'd be an interesting if they wanted to go running back early. But I also like a couple players that are on my mock draft that I did. One of them, Blake mentioned that the shuttle time, and Tanner Bortolini had a 4.28 shuttle, which is insane, and he's really athletic. So this is an interior offensive lineman that they might be able to get in round 4. If they wanted to go that route. So I like Bortolini just as that really athletic center that they could develop. And then a guy last year I was a big fan of one Kobe Turner, who got drafted by a certain team in our division. A really twitchy, athletic, defensive interior lineman, little undersized from a small school, right? And this year, there's a guy I like who is also he's a little bigger than Turner, but another small school defensive lineman, Christian Boyd, who I really like. He's his arm length is something they talk about as a drawback. Again, when you get into the day 3, there's always a limitation or something, but he's got a really good jump, off the line. And a guy that you could probably get on day 3 to be sort of an interior defensive lineman that you develop and probably have a little bit of pass rushing juice from that interior from a small school. That's another guy I like. So those are some of the players I like as on day 2 and 3. So what we're going to do real quick, and I know we've kind of gone a little bit a little bit longer than I anticipated. I'm just going to go around and give everyone a chance to give one final thought going into the draft. Anything you want to say quickly, and then let people know where they can find you and what you're doing in terms of content, and then we will get out of here. So let's go ahead and start. We'll go from the top and work our way down, starting with our good friend who stayed up super late, Kevin. Thank you for doing that, Mr. Kevin Murray. Your final thoughts, and let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Spotify for Let's Talk Cardinals. It's my pod, and you can also reach me on Twitter at Cards Chats. I can't remember my handle now. It's been so long since I've actually. So you can reach me on my personal.
It's in the description,
or you can meet Cardinals Pod. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I do seem to be tweeting a bit more from my personal rather than my my podcast account at the moment, but that's how it goes. But final thoughts. So I think this is arguably the most exciting draft that I can remember for the Cardinals. I also think that this has got potential to be setting us up for the future and putting the new foundations in for this team. Hopefully, this is the last time that we ever see ourselves drafting in the lower half of the draft. And I think if we can have as much success as I think that we did last year in terms of players at depth, I think we're going to be set up for the future. I do not expect us to be making 11 picks and taking 11 rookies into camp. That is not going to be the case. I do see us making trades in terms of setting us up for future capital, but hopefully we'll at least walk away with a handful of new starters for this team. And I can't wait. I really can't.
Marcos.
Well, you can find me at @PancakeSoul on X, and of course, I'm one of the contributors to AZ Sports Underground. Also, you can find me on the Redbird Reboot with my co-host who had to leave early, with Blake Murphy 7. And with the agreements that we have and the disagreements that we have, I love you guys. I think you guys are like, when it comes to like think tank, we actually think about our stuff. We like actually do our research, and then we present what we do. And if it's from different mindsets, it's from different mindsets for a reason. It's because we need to have a group be able to like, put forth what we believe, and then we can get to like a consensus, maybe or maybe not, but it doesn't matter because we're all Cardinals fans at the end of the day. Also, off the stream, I had a rabbit that was in my room. I didn't say this before because I wanted to say it now. I'm gonna name my rabbit after like the first round, after the first pick in our, the first round. So whatever we
Oh, wow.
draft, that's what I'm gonna name the rabbit because I haven't named them yet. So just a little heads up about that if you guys are interested.
What happens if we release the first draft pick?
Oh well,
Does
you
that
know
mean
what?
you
I'll
get rid
just
of the
say
bunny?
well, if we don't have anybody in the first round, then I don't know. I'll just call him blank, I guess.
Nice. We'll call them future considerations. So
There you
all
go.
right. Raphael, thank you so much. We got a super chat from Raphael Casero. Hey, Joe, what's up? A little late to the show, but I just want to say thank you for all the awesome content you give the community and always keeping us involved during the draft process. Good luck in the draft, AZ. Thank you. Raphael was actively involved in Mock Draft Monday. Thank you for your generous support. It is so much fun doing that with y'all as part of this community. So thank you so much for the super chat and for the kind words, Raphael. Walter, where people can find you and your final thoughts.
Revenge of the Birds, Red Rain podcast. And yeah, I'm excited about the draft. And, I think 11 rookies could make this team. I really do. And I hope that they pick them all. Plus with the, expanded practice squads now, I mean, the guys that they pick on day 3 will probably clear waivers and they can develop them and pull them up for games. I love that rule where 2 guys can come up from the practice squad a few times. And, but yeah, it's going to be a really exciting draft. And, it's not too often you have 2 first-round picks. So, this is going to be the fascinating part is, the door will be shut on those Houston trade and we still have 2 Houston picks. So we got their 27 and we got their third round pick. So, who we get in those 2 players, was going to balance things out a little bit. And maybe we get a little bit of Texans luck this year. Maybe we take a little, page out of their book and get something fired up for this team. Because yeah, like all of you, it would be nice not to have to be picking this early in the draft. Although it is nice if you live in Great Britain to have a draft picker early.
I'll be up for the whole thing, Walter. Don't worry about that.
That's right. By the way, my nickname for Kevin is UKK1. He is.
Fantastic.
He is. He's our K1 abroad. So, hey, I shout out to all the panel. Think so highly of all you guys and keep up the great work. Thanks again, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dana, thank you so much for the super chat as well. Thanks to all for putting this together. And thank you for being here. Dana is a great part of our Discord community and is active in the chat when we have our mock draft Mondays and always has great insights. Definitely does her research. So thank you so much, Dana. Aaron Van Buren, my friend, my brother.
Oh, right when the internet happens.
Mm.
Lovely. I'm here. You got me?
Yes, you're here.
Okay, awesome. Well, my Twitter handle or X, what do you want to call it, is at AVB Sports. My thoughts have kind of slowed down because I bought a house, I've started a brand new job, and we're opening up the facility. So I'm in a leadership spot, so I have not been on as much as I have. But the draft will definitely, you'll see me there, and you'll probably hear me on it if you follow me. And I know, my takes are not the norm, but I still think that it is just a little good food for thought. And I always try to look at it from a different angle. So the last thing I will leave you with, which I think I did last year, and this time with a little more positivity in it, because I'm not getting over Steve Keim anymore, is still just expect the unexpected here in the draft. And just be ready in case there is, like we had talked earlier, a different plan or a different course of action that happens. And it may not even be the Cardinals' fault. or their decision or whatever, it was in their hands. So we will see what the future holds, but I feel really good. And when's the last time we've said the Arizona Cardinals have the most picks in the draft? That's a thing to celebrate. So I'm excited for Thursday.
Awesome. And I appreciate that you bring a different perspective, even if I don't agree with you all the time, Aaron. If it was all the same perspective, it'd be boring here, right? Someone's got to mix it up. Jackie, final thoughts and where to find you.
Well, we're in a very good position that luckily Monty Austin Fort set us up for last year. So we really can't lose unless you take a linebacker. Unless Steve Keim just somehow hijacks the draft. You know, we're in a good spot. Whether we trade down a little bit, we still land a top wide receiver. We get our guy Marv, and then address some of this edge and corner issues. So, I mean, we're really like the talk of the draft because everybody's like, what are the Cardinals going to do? What are we going to do? So I'm curious to see what we're going to do. I'm very excited. Either way, I don't think I'll be coming out of this disappointed. But anyways, you can find me on Twitter at jsandiego. That is with 2 O's. I am the co-host of the Redbird Red Zone podcast here on YouTube. I'd also like to shout out my boyfriend's page. He just created a new Twitter account today. It's called From the Nest AZ. Go ahead and give it a follow. He's always here supporting me, so I would like to return the favor and support him.
I think I already followed him, didn't I?
Yes, and you retweeted the link, so I appreciate that, Joe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Last but certainly not least, the man of the hour, the man with the profile picture that leaves us all jealous and envious of his amazing photo there. Kyler Bird.
Let me see. Let me see here.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
Guys, look,
Sweet.
You live.
I'm here. But I'm as excited for the draft as anyone else. It's cool to feel like we're kind of in charge of the draft for once. The things kind of just are on us. So it's nice to be kind of the media darling at the moment. But you guys know where to find me on Twitter, X at this point. But personally, I want to turn the camera on and tell you guys that stuff like this, I mean, I had a pretty major surgery a couple weeks ago that has put me in bed, and I'm doing my PT and trying to rebound from that. But that's going to be a several month long process. And in the meantime, I'm kind of stuck here. And just the interaction that I have with people in the Cardinals community has been very helpful, and I appreciate you guys a lot. And I look forward to the draft and all the time that I've spent being able to talk about the draft, people who care about Cardinals football like me. So thank you for that, and let's go Cardinals.
Awesome. You know,
I changed my mind about the bunny. I'm just gonna name him Bird.
There you go.
There you go.
No, one of the things I really love about doing this, I started the YouTube thing like 3 years ago, just about. And I live in Georgia. I'm originally from Arizona, and I did it in part just to be able to have an outlet to talk about the Cardinals team that I love and to feel connected to the Cardinals community. And I don't think I realized early on how meaningful the connections I would come to be, right? Because some of you I've known maybe for a while. Kevin, I'm just meeting you now. But some of you, I've known for a while, and I count you as friends. And we talk about stuff offline about our lives and things like this. And I've made connections with other content creators, not just Cardinals content creators, just a really great group of people. And I am, like Kyler, really grateful for this community and the friendships I've made here. And I appreciate you all being here. Appreciate the folks who are in the chat and part of our Discord. It really is a great community of folks, and we love having new people join. Kevin, we're glad to have you as part of our community now.
I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. We'll definitely be having you back. So everyone, where to find me: Twitter, Jokomo13, join the Discord if you aren't already on it. You know where to find me on YouTube. Make sure you follow all these folks. Their links are in the description. And you know, I normally I get to more of the comments in the chat. Obviously, we've had a big panel, and we've already gone much longer than I thought we would. So couldn't get to all your comments, but thank you all for being here. So we're gonna get out of here. I'm gonna throw up the channel member shout outs, and we're gonna get out of here. But I can't wait for the drafts. And someone asked, am I gonna do a live stream? I'm gonna do a live stream on Thursday night for the first round, and we'll have folks hanging out with us. So I'll have more details on that. But excited for the draft. Looking forward to enjoying it with this great community of folks. So everyone, we'll see you later. And I got to get the banner down. Peace.